I'm Teisha with Shalom TV's news update for Wednesday, September the 4th, 2013. U.S. President Barack Obama addressed a news conference today in Stockholm regarding the situation in Syria and his proposed military action. Standing with Swedish President Fredrik Reinfeldt after meeting with him, Obama said the international community cannot be silent in the face of a chemical weapons attack by Syrian President Bashar Assad against his people. He said, "At what point do we say we need to confront actions that are violating our common humanity? I would argue that when I see 400 children subjected to gas, over 1,400 innocent civilians dying senselessly, the moral thing to do is not to stand by and do nothing." Obama said the credibility of the international community, as well as that of the U.S. Congress, was on the line. Meanwhile, Jewish organizations here in the U.S. are expressing their support for President Obama's call for a targeted military action in Syria following the regime's use of chemical weapons and urging bipartisan congressional authorization for the action. B'nai B'rith International said the U.S. has a moral obligation to enforce a global norm against using chemical weapons. The American Jewish Committee President Stanley Bergman and Executive Director David Harris sent a letter to Congress members pointing out that the August 21st use of chemical weapons crossed Obama's red line and was an act of defiance, they said, that for reasons both profoundly moral and strategic demands a decisive response. The Anti-Defamation League's National Chair Barry Curtis Lusher and ADL National Director Abe Foxman said Congress should act swiftly to hold Syrian President Assad accountable for the wanton act of violence. The National Council of Young Israel said the use of military force against Syria, a country that is sponsored by Iran and the terrorist group Hezbollah, will also send a message to other rogue governments such as Iran, which is relentlessly pursuing nuclear weapons, that there is a price to be paid for their inexplicable and inexcusable actions. The Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations said those regimes who have or seek weapons of mass destruction, particularly Iran and Hezbollah, must see that there is accountability. They said failing to take action would damage the credibility of the U.S. and negatively impact the effort to prevent Iran from achieving a nuclear weapons capacity. And the American Israel Public Affairs Committee said the civilized world cannot tolerate the use of these barbaric weapons. They said the U.S. must also send a forceful message to Iran and Hezbollah, both of whom have provided extensive support to President Assad. Reuters reports that leaders of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee said they reached an agreement yesterday on a draft authorization for the use of military force in Syria that was narrower than the request made by President Obama. The draft obtained by Reuters set a 60-day limit on the action, with a possible single 30-day extension subject to conditions. Senator Robert Menendez said, "Together we have pursued a course of action that gives the president the authority he needs to deploy force in response to the Assad regime's criminal use of chemical weapons against the Syrian people, while assuring that the authorization is narrow and focused, limited in time, and assures that the armed forces of the United States will not be deployed for combat operations in Syria." If the draft passes, it will then go to the Senate for approval. A top aide to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said today that the peace talks with Israel have not made any progress. Yasser Abed Rabo told the Voice of Palestine radio today these negotiations are futile and won't lead to any results, further saying, "I don't expect any progress at all unless there is huge and powerful American pressure, such as the one we are seeing from America to deal with the Syrian issue." An Israeli official in Prime Minister Netanyahu's office declined to comment on the remarks, saying the two sides had agreed that only the U.S. should speak about the talks, and Israel was abiding by that agreement. Palestinian and Israeli negotiators were reported to have met yesterday in Jerusalem, and both Netanyahu and Abbas are due to meet with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry separately in Europe sometime in the coming week to discuss the status of the negotiations. The White House released a video message today from President Obama for the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, which begins this evening, wishing the Jewish people a happy and sweet year. During the video, the president specifically noted the recent 50-year anniversary of the March on Washington and the participation of the Jewish community there. The president mentioned in his trip to Israel earlier this year, where he said he was proud to renew the U.S.'s unbreakable bond with the country. He said the new year is a new opportunity to get things right and that there were still challenges ahead both at home and abroad, and likely referencing Israel and the situation in Syria, he said,
"Beyond our borders, we must stand for the security of our allies, even as we take new steps in the pursuit of peace. We live in challenging times, but I know that if we work together, we can make this moment one of hope for all our neighbors, in America, in Israel, and around the world."
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the Jewish people today as well in a video he released for the Jewish New Year. He mentioned the achievements of the State of Israel over the past year and also the challenges that lay ahead. He specifically mentioned the conflict in Syria as well as the threat of a nuclear Iran.
And while we're not involved in the internal conflict in Syria, we will defend ourselves if it is necessary. We will act with resolve to protect our people. No one should doubt our resolve. And of paramount importance, we also see Iran continuing to pursue its nuclear weapons program. And this poses a grave threat to Israel, to the region, to the peace of the world. Iran's nuclear program must be stopped. We simply cannot allow the world's most dangerous regime to obtain the world's most dangerous weapons. We already have enough indications of what this could do.
Netanyahu said in meeting these and other challenges, he had no doubt that Jewish communities around the world would continue to stand by Israel, just as Israel would continue to be there for the Jewish people everywhere.
Jewish unity is a major source of our collective strength. And together, no challenge is too great. We've acted together. We've defied the laws of history. We've overcome such tremendous odds. And Israel is such a thriving, bustling, prosperous, modern, advanced country. And you can look in a very, very far distance to the west and to the east and to other directions. And you see that Israel is a beacon of stability and modernity and progress. And it's because we're united. Because together, I believe we can continue to achieve great things for the Jewish people and for the world.
Netanyahu also stressed the importance of a lasting peace agreement with the Palestinians. He said the challenge is advancing peace while maintaining Israel's security, a peace, he said, that is real and enduring. And with the Jewish New Year beginning tonight, Shalom TV will be broadcasting services for Rosh Hashanah live from Central Synagogue in New York City on the Shalom TV channel, as well as on shalomtv.com. Our live broadcast tonight begins at 8 p.m. with a replay at 11:30 and continues tomorrow and into Friday. You can find all of the information about our special programming at shalomtv.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Wednesday, September the 4th, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader, wishing you all a happy and healthy and peaceful new year. I'll be back on Friday. Shana Tova.